Which cities in the world have the cheapest real estate for investment? That's a question my R&D team and I have been asking ourselves over the last year. And we've been working closely with my friends at investasian.com to figure out where can you go and invest in emerging and frontier markets and get ultra cheap property prices for investment. In this video, I'm going to tell you what we found. Hi, I'm Andrew Henderson here in Singapore. And if you would have bought real estate here in Singapore several decades ago, you could be fabulously wealthy today. But when we say go where you're treated best, that not only means parking your cash in a place like Singapore that's really, really stable, but it also means going to the other end of the spectrum, finding where can I buy properties, where can I invest my capital and potentially earn an excellent return. For me, $1,000 a square meter, that's about $91 per square foot, is an extremely cheap price for real estate. That's what I would call the beginning of ultra cheap, $1,000 and less per meter. If I'm in the city center of a capital city or of a business city, okay? And so in this video, I want to talk about some of the cities that we found that meet this criteria, $1,000 a meter or less in the city center. What I've learned over years of traveling and talking to investors around the world is that while this may not be true in places like the US or the UK or Australia, in most emerging and frontier countries, you want to buy in the capital city. That's where people are moving. That's where things are flourishing. There are a few exceptions where you've got the business capital, which is different than the capital city. Maybe the capital city is something like a Pretoria or a Canberra, which is kind of not so important. In cities like those could be interesting because governments never go to a business. But in most countries, you want to go to the capital. That's where everyone is going. And so that's the model that we used. We don't want to buy property in the suburbs. We don't want to buy property in some second-tier city. We want to be in the core area, in the tourist district, in the core kind of blue chip area of a city center. And we came up with a number of places in a couple of different parts of the world. If you have a city that I don't mention, comment below. What are your experiences investing around the world? What have you found? Leave a comment. But before we do that, let's just do a quick comparison, okay? Obviously, there are plenty of places in developed countries that have property that meets this criteria. There are parts of Cleveland, Ohio, where I grew up, that meet this criteria, about $900 a square meter. That's the average price of a home in the Cleveland area. On the other side of the spectrum, you go in the United States to Los Angeles, about $7,000 a meter on average. And if you go to parts of Beverly Hills, it's going to be triple and even quadruple that in some cases. You go to Hong Kong, generally accepted as the most expensive property market, $29,000 a square meter. So now you understand what we're working with, okay? $29,000 per square meter in Hong Kong, $7,000 in LA. We're talking about $1,000. And we're going to do that by being in countries that are emerging, that have been beaten down because people have false beliefs about them, places like Colombia, where people think, oh, it's still a drug capital, and you can go and scoop up really good deals, but also smaller domestic economies that a lot of people haven't heard of yet. And perhaps it's investors from the Arab world or China or Russia or other emerging places, Turkey, that are coming in, getting their capital out of their country, and they're investing in nearby countries. So with that said, let's dive into the list. One of the countries that I've talked about a lot over the last years that still meets this criteria is Cambodia and its capital of Phnom Penh. $1,000 a meter is still doable. And so a number of years ago, about 4 years ago now, I talked about the 50-20-100 model. Buy a property, a shop house apartment in the city center, $50,000, renovate it for 20, and it'll be worth and saleable for 100. Those numbers have changed a little bit. Yields have been squeezed as prices have gone up. And so there's still a lot of opportunity there, though, particularly as developers come in and look to build skyscrapers, build malls. We're seeing that a lot. And every time I go to Phnom Penh, I'm seeing a flurry of new activity. So despite all that activity, Phnom Penh still meets the criteria. You can still find plenty of places for $1,000 a square meter and less. I was recently looking at a really small apartment, like right down the street from the Royal Palace. Prime location, the kind of thing you'd pass down to your grandchildren. It was about $900 a square meter. Needed a bit of work. These are not going to be generally properties that are in pristine, mansion quality condition for this $1,000 a meter or less. But that's about as good of a location as you can get next to the palace, and it was about $900 a meter. Now let's go over to Central Asia and Eastern Europe. This is a great region in my opinion because a lot of people haven't even considered this part of the world. From the Balkans to Central Asia, these are some of the most misunderstood and just unknown countries in the world. Ask someone where Albania is. Ask someone where Uzbekistan is. They're not going to know. Armenia, no clue. And so for that reason, I think there's a lot of potential in the countries that have their acts together. 4 countries and 4 cities in this region stand out to me. Number 1 is probably my favorite choice, and I've talked about it a lot. It will come as no surprise that Tbilisi, Georgia is on my list. Georgia has a really pro-business government. Tbilisi lags behind its neighbors, Yerevan and Baku, in terms of prices. And I have done many a deal at less than $1,000 a square meter. I see that it's probably going to tip in the near future. I've been seeing deals creeping up over the past 3 or 4 years, but I bought property in amazing city center locations for $430 some a meter, $510 a meter. I recently did a deal in a super prime location, which is my home, for about $1,100 a meter. So I think that it's not going to be $1,000 a meter for long, but it is still in that criteria. You can find properties that need renovation. You're not going to find anything renovated, certainly not to your standards, but you can find properties still for under $1,000. Elsewhere in the region, Kishinev, Moldova. Interesting that Moldova now has a citizenship by investment program, which will probably not allow you to buy some of these quality properties or deep discount properties. Moldova was known for a while as a high yield country, but the challenge with Moldova is there's just not really a lot of domestic demand. There's not people coming to Moldova. They've got a very interesting wine scene that most people don't know about, but a lot of Moldovans just want to move to Romania. They're getting their Romanian passports and getting out. They're moving out. So while you can buy for less than $1,000 a meter there, I'm not sure exactly what the benefit would be. 2 countries in Central Asia that stand out, and 2 capital cities, are Bishkek in Kyrgyzstan, Tashkent in Uzbekistan. Most people probably don't know much about these countries. The people who are investing in emerging markets are focusing on Kazakhstan right now. I think Uzbekistan is potentially very interesting because the country is starting to open up. And so that would maybe be the one that would be my second choice on this list because they are starting to become more pro-business. That part of the world, rather post-Soviet, has not really been, they've been kind of slow to adapt, but I think they're at least countries to watch. And so if you have a strong stomach, they might be countries to go in, put in your time in the ground, and get there before everyone else does. But those properties, or those capital cities, still have properties that meet the sub $1,000 meter criteria, whereas Kazakhstan has surpassed that already. 3 other capital cities, if we move to the Middle East and North Africa, these are also for folks with strong stomachs. Cairo in Egypt, you have decent properties there for under $1,000 a square meter. Was just talking to one of my Egyptian friends about the opportunities. Also in Alexandria, super cheap there. The issues with tourism there have not helped. The issues with the Egyptian pound have not helped, but you can still find deals in Cairo. A lot of people don't really understand Egypt and Egyptian people. It's really a very interesting place, but certainly some structural problems there. Also Islamabad in Pakistan, also Tunis in Tunisia. So these are all capital cities where you can buy in the core for under $1,000 a square meter. Now, if you're listening to this list, you might say, I don't know where a lot of those countries are. I don't know how I feel about a lot of those places. Certainly, I've been talking for a long time about Cambodia and Georgia, so if you've watched our stuff, you may feel somewhat more comfortable with those. I meet people on the street in Tbilisi who say, hey, I'm here checking it out because I saw your videos. And that's the thing. When you go and check it out, you start to understand it better. As I traveled over the last 11 or 12 years now, as I traveled more and more, I put a name to a face, as it were, and it became easier to dip my toe in, and then dip my toe in more, and then dip my toe in more. And so if you're looking to take advantage of these property markets, I think that for almost all of them, the best time to invest will be now. Certainly there is some risk that something happens politically. That's always a risk that you'll take, although things happen in the United States due to politics and due to the economy, so there's always a risk. But what you can do if you're not ready to get into these markets now is go and see if you can open a bank account. Go and dip your toe in. People come up to me and say, I came here to open an account at TBC. And so once they've put $5,000 in that TBC account, maybe the next step is, they're thinking about Georgia. Okay, now they're checking their bank account. Okay, it's still there 6 months later. Nothing happened, right? Now they feel a bit more comfortable. Maybe they come back and start looking at properties. That could be one step that you take if you're not ready to buy. But really, if you want to take advantage of these markets, these prices are the cheapest in the world. This is about as cheap as it gets. And so to a certain extent, these are call options. Some of these countries may not take off. Some of them may just languish. Moldova, perhaps, I think may just languish and you may be flat for a while, collect some rents, but not really see a lot of growth. Other markets, I think, are going to take off in a big way. When you look at other capital cities in the region, I mean, you look at Turkey, $2,000 to $3,000 a meter in many cases. You look at many other places in Southeast Asia compared to, Cambodia. I mean, Thailand, far more expensive now. So this is your long-term investment, taking a gamble on places that are going to long-term increase in value, provided that everything continues to go well. But what you're going to need to do is put in some effort, either with someone who knows what they're doing or someone who's on the ground, okay? So you either want to be on the ground yourself or you want to have someone who knows what they're doing. You can't just go online and find any good deals in Tashkent, okay? So you've got to pick one of those angles. I'd love to hear your comments on this. Leave a comment below. I want to know, is this something that interests you? Which market interests you? Do you want to go and be on the ground? Is that something that you have a spirit for adventure and you want to go and figure it out? Do you want someone to help you? What are your thoughts on investing in ultra cheap emerging market real estate? Hi, I'm Andrew Henderson from Nomad Capitalist. I wrote this book, which you can find on Amazon, to distill a lot of the stuff we talk about in these videos and a lot of the stuff I've learned over the last decade plus traveling all around the world, teaching you about how to legally reduce your taxes, build your personal freedom, and create wealth faster. Definitely get a copy of this book if you want to learn more. Now, if you want to watch more videos, make sure you subscribe to our channel and make sure you click the notifications bell so you never miss one of our new videos with more tips on how to go where you're treated best. And if you're already a 6- or 7-figure entrepreneur and you'd like to put these strategies in place for yourself, go to nomadcapitalist.com and learn about how I can help you.